Okay, so take a second, look at this, decide which of these doesn't belong. There are more than one correct answer, so it's okay if you don't give the same thing as someone else. Take 5 seconds. Adriana.
The pink one?
Why?
Because it's pink.
Okay. Anyone else have that same thought, the pink one, because it's the only pink one? Okay. Any other ones?
The circle, because it's the only circle, and also there's no black like everywhere like the other ones.
Okay, so it has like a thicker border, and it's the only one that's a circle. Anyone else think either of those things? Okay. Anyone else have a different opinion? Okay. Sorry, you can answer in 1 second. Okay, go ahead. The color of which one? Okay, the color of the font is different because it's only white colored font. Anyone else have that same thought? Okay. Did you have another?
The one on the top left. Because that's a different text font.
It has a different text font. Anyone else have that same thought? Rocky, did you have another one? Yeah. Which one? The question mark. Why? Okay, that's fair. None of the other ones have a question mark. Anyone have that thought? No? It's okay. Original thoughts are great too. Nathan?
Now I think about it, none of them belong.
Correct.
They're all different.
They're all different in their own way. Okay, one more. I think we answered all of them for all the reasons. Yep. I have to switch. No. Okay, now we're gonna do a math one. Now take 5 seconds. Which of these do not belong? Which one do you think? This one got a little bit harder. Any ideas? Angel?
The white one, because it doesn't have the 2.
Okay, so all these other ones have this 2 in front, but this is the only one that doesn't. Anyone else think that? Have that thought? That one because it didn't have the 2? Okay, a couple of us. Any others? Nathan?
Purple one because the X values are weird compared to the other ones.
You said the X values, I didn't hear the last part.
It's weird
Weird, how so?
because the X value has to be negative for that to work.
Oh, like if you're actually solving it?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we actually solved it, which we could do really quickly. So this was going to end up in the negative. Is that what you were thinking? Because
Yeah,
we
because
got
the X
negative.
value is negative.
Okay, because the answer is negative. Okay. Anyone have that thought? As you start to solve it, you're going to get a negative answer. Okay. I didn't completely solve it. I kind of stopped, but it's okay. Anyone else have any answers why it doesn't belong? Ceci?
The blue one, because instead of adding the values, you're subtracting them.
Okay, so right here. It's the only one that's subtracting instead of adding. Okay. Anything else?
The yellow one, because you're adding 2.
Instead of 1. Okay. So here, while we are still adding, this is the only one that adds 2, but everything else is adding 1 or doing something with 1 instead. There's another reason why the pink purple one doesn't belong. You have an answer? No.
Yeah.
Yes. The negative 4, yes. Is the only one that starts off equaling something that's negative. Right? You could also talk about the actual like color differences. This is the only one that's not a specific color. whatever you want to call it. Alright, so we're going to do stuff like this, or sometimes we'll have actual warm-ups that you do on your desk. It depends on the day, what we're doing, all of those things. I never know where my mouse is. Okay. We're just going to erase all of that. Alright, so first, that's on the home page, so you can open your iPad. If you want to follow along and do as I do, you can do that. If you'd rather just watch, that's also fine. So, first, make sure that you're signed into yours and not my freshmen were just signed in. Make sure they signed out if you're following along. In our class on the home page, there's just a couple things I wanted to point out. One is, I set this up so the first 5 announcements are up there. I post daily announcements of what do you need to do before the next class. So if you ever forget, maybe you missed it in class, or maybe you don't have your calendar, or just want a refresher, you can see exactly what that is. So I'll go into like Tuesdays, and I'll show you exactly what we did on Tuesday. Filled out the About Me form, answered the discussion. That one was optional. Join your class coach. I said that, but we're actually going to do that today. So disregard that. If you did it already, great. And go back to the home page. I know mine is a little different than yours on the iPad, but it will be similar-ish. Okay. Some other things. Later, we're going to utilize. There we go. This class resources button. We'll talk about that in a moment. We'll talk about this in a moment. Well, I should come back to this. We'll talk about course calendars in a moment too, because I want to make sure everyone has that. This takes you to each unit that we're in. Some of them aren't open right now. I thought I put Ms. Shepherd's information up here also. I must have put it somewhere else. Well, I will fix that. But this is where you can find both of our office hours. I have a specific way to schedule for mine, which I'll show you. But mine are, I changed this to 6:50. So gray day mornings, if you need me, I'm available in here. Just on those mornings, because I'm doing eval. Some of you have seen me at the door. And then until activity buses, until 3:30, Tuesday through Thursday. Once activity buses start, it'll be till 4 p.m. And Ms. Shepherd, you also said 2:30 to 4 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Yeah. So that will also be posted. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you have both of us to go to if you have questions. Questions about any of that? I was debating what to do next. So on the side, there are some important links. You may not use all of these, and that's fine. The most important ones right now are the how to schedule office hours, which I'll show you what it looks like, but won't play the video that's there. And then I'll show you how to actually do it here in a bit. This is the very first time you schedule office hours for me. Watch that video, just in case you forgot what I said in class. That way you know exactly how to do it for the next time, and you can keep watching it if you switches. And Delta Math. That'll take you directly to Delta Math. So we're going to be joining that later. But if you ever need it, if it's not bookmarked on your laptop, phone, whatever, you can get it directly from there. Alright, I'm going to go into the modules. Just to show you some important modules and kind of what my modules look like. Maybe. So if you were in this Tuesday, I had you minimize a lot of stuff. You may have to do that same thing, but I'm going to go back to the top. So if you're ever not here, view this first. It'll give you instructions on what you should be doing when you're not here. Maybe one of us aren't here, or both of us aren't here, and that will tell you what you should be doing. If we're both not here, I'll try to post an announcement of what you should be doing, so make sure you're looking at that. The How to Study module is great for this class, but it's also good for other classes. So if you need help with studying tips, that's a really good place to find how could I study better, especially in math, but it could be used for other courses as well. You may have noticed I'm recording. So it just records the board and sound. It's not a visual thing. But if you're absent, you can go back and you can rewatch that video. It will be in whatever the unit is. And then, I thought I changed that, but I didn't. Okay. So this will say your class period with whatever we're doing, and then you would just click on that link. And it'll take you to my YouTube page. You can watch the other videos if you choose. Here we go. I'll come back to course calendars in a second. Later, when we start doing our tests and you want to retake, this is a good place to find, okay, what do I need to do in order to retake and what all is needed and things like that. Later, we'll talk about flex days. In a regular module, so like this unit, it'll have that course calendar, which again, we'll talk about in a second. You won't need all this stuff. You won't have to go to all this stuff. A lot of the stuff is there if you want it, if you need it. So if you feel like you want to go into the vocab just to learn some more, or maybe you forgot a word, do that. The most important things in this are the notes pages. They have access to blank notes, to filled in notes, a video of not our class video, but of me standing up here doing it in an empty room. So I'm kind of just talking to myself. But you can watch that video. The discussions for every lesson, that way you're getting a better understanding of it. The Delta Maths are not real assignments here, they're just really dates that link to Delta Math. You're going to do the assignment in Delta Math. And later it'll also show you the reviews. The quiz dates, we'll do quizzes on paper in here, as well as the test dates. We'll do that in paper, on paper in here. But the dates are there so you can see it. Okay, that's a lot of information. Do you have any questions about any of that? If you do have this gold sheet that we also passed out, take that out. If you need another one, raise your hand. Pass that out. All of this, but I didn't. It's okay. In the course calendars is where you can find that same thing. So if you lose it, don't freak out. It's also here. It's also in the unit module itself at the top. So there are different ways you can find that. All of the dates are in your actual calendar if you need any of those. Okay? You will have time to work on the Delta Math that is due tomorrow in class today. So don't freak out about that. Last thing. So I'm going to show you how to schedule hours, how it's going to look, and then show you, I'll show you the page first. So the page that you would go to watch the video is this, the How to Schedule Office Hours. You wouldn't do this because you would already be in student mode, but you would go into the calendar. Now this cannot be done, as far as I know, on an app. So like on the iPad app, on your phone app, you actually have to go into a browser, Safari, Chrome, Edge, doesn't matter. And then you'll see something that says Find Appointment, and you'll click that. If other teachers are using this, you'll see more classes, but you'll choose ours, hit submit. And then you'll see the other things that are due, but my office hours, you'll see them get bold, get bigger, and you can click on that, type in whatever we're meeting about, retake work, getting help, extra time, whatever, and hit reserve. And then it'll gray itself out. And then if you need to cancel, you just go back in and hit unreserve. Right, so that video goes through that, and you can pause it, replay it as many times as you need. Right, questions on any of that? until you see the button that says class resources. So if you haven't signed in, do that first. Go into the class. On the home page, look for the button that says class resources.
So she still can get in there, so should we try to see about hers? She can get into it.
Yeah. During lunch or like, should we let her go now? Or before lunch? Or at lunch? You're gonna see Mr. Kinlaw though. You know where he is in the library? Yeah, okay. Because I've had a few students, they just had to get their password completely reset by him, and then it worked. Alright, so go into the home page, go into class resources, and then you're going to click the class codes for Delta Math and register and join, and for Desmos and register and join using your PWCS keys. So Delta Math and Desmos. Do those both. No, I got that. Oh. I did, just not over here. Okay. Alright, if I asked you, what is a solution? What would you tell me?
Answer to a problem.
Okay, an answer to a problem. So my handwriting is, we talked about this, it's not the greatest, but if you can't read it, let me know. Anything I write, I want you to also write, but you can also summarize and things like that. If I'm going too fast, you need me to go back, anything like that, just let me know. Anyone else have a different response, or we agree with Nathan's? Alright. So then these next four, they're asking us to determine if the following values are solutions or not. So how could I do that? I'm just going to slow down a bit. How could I figure out, is 5 a solution to this problem?
You could do 58 minus 7 gives you 51 and then divide that by 13.
Okay, so you could actually solve the problem. What if I didn't really want to solve the problem, but maybe I got this after I solved it and I wanted to double check myself? How could I double check that?
You could do 5 times 13 minus 7.
Yeah, so we're going to put it back in, put this back in here. And use this as a way to double check ourselves. So if I were to do this, those of you with calculators, go ahead and multiply 13 times 5. Tell me what that is. Thank you. Right, and then if I did 65 minus 7, would I give me 58? So that would make that the actual solution. This is a true statement. It's the same thing on both sides. So as we start to get into solving equations, anytime we get an answer, we want to make sure that it is actually the correct answer. I won't do that all the time, but you should want to do that often, just as a way to double check yourself. Sorry. Questions on that before we do number 2? Okay. So we know that 5 works. So obviously negative 5 is not going to work, but we're still going to check it. So if I do this, then I would get negative 65 instead of a positive. In the calculator, when you type in a negative, make sure you're using this bottom, not this. Because one is for subtraction, the other is for negatives. And then when I subtract this, what would we get? So make sure you're typing in negative 65 minus 7. I heard something back to here. Negative 72, yes.
Whoa.
Don't do that. Go back. Okay. And does negative 72 equal 58? No, those are not the same thing. This is not a true statement. That would mean if I got this as a solution, somewhere I messed up. Maybe I forgot a negative. Maybe I multiplied wrong. I don't know. So I'd have to go back and I'd have to resolve that and fix it. And that's a good way to see, okay, I did not do this problem right. Alright, I want you to try 3 and 4 really quickly. I'll give you 3 to 5 minutes to do those two.
What do you want me to do? I want you to do this. I want you to win out plus 3. I need to be able to see it.
While we are finishing maybe that last one, did we get that this was a solution or was not a solution for number 3? It was not. Does anyone need to see that? Yes, okay. So if I were to put negative 2 in for x, I'm just going to rewrite everything else. And then I'm using my order of operations. So I'm going to multiply first. This plus becomes a minus. We're going to try to avoid putting plus minuses because that gets confusing. And then go ahead and subtract this. And then we get 2 different numbers. Negative 1 does not equal negative 5. This is not a solution. Questions on that? Did we get that this number 4 was or was not a solution?
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Does anyone need to see that one? Yes, okay. Alright, so same thing. We're going to put that number in for y and rewrite everything else. And then we can divide the negative 34 in 2. Someone do that in their calculator. Tell me what you got. 17, but negative 17, yes. Try not to forget your negatives, so we'll throw the whole answer off. Right? And then if we add these two, negative 17 plus 5, what would that give us? Negative 12. So it is the same on both sides. It is a true statement. This was our solution. Right, so as we get into actually solving, use this as a way to double check yourself. Now, later I will also show you how to check yourself in Desmos, but that will be more so like when you're doing practice problems at home, or if you do a practice problem and you just want to check yourself really quickly, because we need to know how to use the calculators too. Many of us are going on to Algebra 2, where they only use the calculators. Now, those of us not going on to Algebra 2, that's also why you can use Desmos to check yourself. Alright, we're just going to do a couple of these. This is just to recognize what's happening. So we start to get those steps in our minds so that when we actually do them, we're like, oh, okay, it was this. We're doing this. So whatever the first one is, that's always given. Then we're looking at what did they do? What changed from step 1 to step 2? What's different?
They did the little parentheses.
Okay, what exactly did they do with those parentheses?
They solved the equation.
How? What exactly what math operation did they do to get 2x instead of 2 parentheses x, and then negative 9 and then negative 18? What math did they do there? They multiplied, yes. So this, we use the distributive property, which is multiplying. Don't do that. But we have to remember that's what we're doing when we distribute. We're multiplying across whatever's there. And then from step 2 to step 3, what changed? We can say out loud, we can raise hands, either or. Kennedy, did you want to answer? No? Okay. What's different? What was here but now it's gone? Or what was here and now it's different? The 18, okay. What do we do with that to get this? Let's see. If I subtracted, would that disappear? No. So maybe not subtract. What else could we have done?
You added them together.
Added them. So, and what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So they added 18 both here and here to make this negative 10 become 8. So that's your addition property of equality. You're doing one thing to both sides. I'm just going to put POE. Oh, stop that. I have to lock this. So POE is property of equality. I'm just going to quickly lock this really quickly so that it can stop moving around. No, don't do that.
Question.
Yes.
So, how does it become positive? Because my math so
Right. And then the last step. Step 3 to step 4, what changed? What happened?
Yeah,
We divided both sides by 2. So that's your division property of equality. I'm just going to put divide POE. So one of the things we have to remember when we're solving, we have to do it to both sides. We can't just do it to one side because then it throws the whole thing off. We have to remember that equality part. We're doing it to both sides. Time-wise, we'll do one more of these, and then time-wise, because I want you to have time to practice, we're going to move on after that. So for number 2, they gave us this first one. What changed? What did they do? Subtract 10. So that would be our subtraction property of equality. They subtracted on both sides. And then, what did they do here from step 2 to step 3? Holly? Multiply it. And we're going to talk about inverse operations here in a second. But they multiplied this negative 3 on both sides. So that's your multiplication property of equality. I'm just going to put multiply POE. So the main thing is we're doing it to both sides. Just remember we're doing it to both sides. Do you have any questions on those two before we go to the next page? So, really quickly, we're going to talk about some inverse operations. Oh, and this. So, kind of retaking what we asked at the beginning, what is a solution? We're going to take that and change it to what does it mean to solve an equation? And I'm going to say that part to find an answer, but also using your inverse operations. So, to find an answer using your inverse operations is the answer to this. And then we need to know what those inverse operations are. So if I said, what is the opposite or inverse of addition? What would that be? Subtraction. We're just going to draw an arrow. What is the opposite or inverse of division? Multiplication. We're going to do a different color just because. So those are the main ones we're going to use, but sometimes these pop up. What would be the opposite of squaring something?
Square root.
It's actually square root. So if we think about this, if I took 2 squared, that's 2 times 2, that's 4. But if I took the square root of 4, we know that's 2. They undo each other. So then cube root and cube also undo each other. If I had the cube root of 8, that's 3. And then 3 cubed, that's 3 times 3 times 3. I'm sorry, I was doing 2, not 3. That's 2 times 2 times 2. It would also be 8. They undo each other. So, as we start to solve equations, these are just helpful steps. If you get stuck, use these. Distribute if we can, if necessary. Combine like terms if they're the same on the same side. We'll talk about that. Move the constant or the variable term by adding or subtracting, and then get the variable along by multiplying or dividing. So I want you to look at these, find any you want to see do go over. We may not have time to do all of them today because I want to give you some time to practice also. So any that you look at and you're like, I'm not even sure where to start with that. Or that looks challenging. Let's do that together. Any of those stand out to you guys like that? If you feel like you can do all of them, that's great. But if there's one that you're like, I'm not sure about that one, this is the time to ask about that. So we can go through it together. Yeah. 3. Okay. 3's a good one. So we're going to use our inverse operations to get P by itself. When we do that, we have to get everything away from P, but we want to start with anything not connected to P first. So we're going to get rid of the 25. How could we do that? Add it. Yes. So do the opposite of whatever it says. It was negative or minus. So add it to 115. Remember, we're doing this to both sides. These cancel. What's left? What is 115 plus 25? 140, thank you. Right, and then there are 2 ways to go about solving this part. We could separate it and do 2 things separately, or look at it as a whole. I will do both. Really quickly. So if I separated this, let's say I just want to get rid of the 3 first. Right now the 3 is being divided, so I could get rid of it by doing what? Multiplying. I could multiply both sides by 3. And what happens is you could multiply exactly and then simplify, but really these 3, they just cancel. So we don't even have to do that. What is that? 140 times 3. My brain is blanking on all math today.
420.
Thank you. Right, and then to get P by itself, how would we get rid of 2? Divide, yes. So that P is
2 times.
yes. So we're using those inverse operations, thinking about how could I get P by itself to solve and get that solution. All of those things connect together. Do you have a question? Okay. Really quickly, I'm just going to show you the other way you could have done this. You don't have to write this part down. I'm just going to show it. So that part would still be the same, adding 25. Instead of doing this in 2 separate steps, you could do what is called flipping the reciprocal, multiplying by the reciprocal. That just means taking this fraction, flipping it upside down, and multiplying it on both sides. So instead of doing it like this, which you can still do, I'm just showing you another way, you could take the fraction and flip it upside down and multiply it on both sides. And in your calculator, I could take 140 and multiply it by, we did this last class, alpha y equals, to get our fraction bar, and then put in that fraction. And we get the same answer. So it doesn't matter which way you do it, whichever one you like better, do it that way. Okay, questions on that? Other questions on this page that we've looked and it looks confusing, we want to go through together? Yeah. Number 6. All right. So number 6 also has a couple different ways to do it. We may not have time to do both, but I just want to get through one at least. Maybe we see fractions and we freak out. It happens. So one way we could deal with this is to get rid of the fractions. That way we just don't have to deal with it at all. To get rid of the fractions, we have to multiply both sides. Don't do that, please. This entire side and the 7 by something. That something has to be something that these two numbers both go into. So what is some number that 3 and 2 both go into? It has to be like multiplying. So if we were adding, yes, but 6 works. So I can take this whole thing and multiply by 6. But multiplication, property of equality, what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. I can't just multiply one side. And then this is going to be like distributing. But I'm only going to do that to the numerator because all of our whole numbers are really fractions over 1. So when I multiply this together, I'm doing 6 times 2x and 6 times x, 1 times 3, and 1 times 2. So I'll do that. So 6 times 2x would be what? 12x. I'll just worry about the numerators first. Stop that. 6 times x. 6x. 1 times anything is just whatever you're multiplying. So that would just be over 3. Okay, I did try to write that nice. The book does not like me today. Try again. Okay. So that would still be 2. And then 7 times 6, we would have 42. So it's still in fraction right now, yes, but it's going to disappear. I can simplify this. 12 divided by 3 is what? 4. Keep the x. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Keep the x. Now we no longer have fractions. They disappeared. But we do have like terms, so we can combine these two by just adding whatever the number is. So you don't add like 2 x's after, just the x, and then divide. What is the solution? 6. For sake of time, I'll show you the second way next class. But I want you to have time to practice. So in the Delta Math, there was one that's due tomorrow. That's on just problems like these. I want you to try that. If you get it done, you don't have homework. But if you don't get it done in class, you have homework. It is due tomorrow, so keep that in mind. You can get help from anyone in here, including us. So if you have questions or need help, please ask.